Broadcast live. We're talking about what you're talking about.
You all ready for this?
This is a sham.
No.
Nope.
Y'all, just stop.
Get real.
Welcome to DBL. We got the whole panel here. What's going on, everybody? We are starting today with a massive, brawl that broke out on a dock in Montgomery, Alabama over the weekend. Videos have gone viral online. It all started, so we can go back to the beginning, when a group of white pontoon boaters attacked a black riverboat co-captain who was trying to get them to move their boat so his riverboat could dock. The situation escalated into this fallout brawl with people fighting up and down the dock, and it was mostly along racial lines. Now, at one point, a folding chair was used to hit multiple people, and at least one person was pushed off the dock into the water. Whew. Okay, now, the chief of police in Montgomery has announced assault charges against the three white men yesterday. One of the men is in custody. More charges are expected. However, the police chief said that the hate crime charges that people were sort of expecting are not among them. Now, the video has sparked a lot of conversation about what happened and the racial history in Montgomery. What are your thoughts about this, Erica, when you first saw this?
Well, it's law. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. I think where the racial context comes into it is that this is Montgomery. There is a very lethal history when it comes to black people in Montgomery. This particular dock had to do with enslaved people coming over and being sold at this dock. There's a lot of context to this entire situation. But at the end of the day, the idea of every action having an equal and opposite reaction wasn't law. Because when black people were enslaved in this country, then it was expected that for every action there would not be an action, because that action would result in death for black people. So the idea that what really is the most telling to me is that someone would attack another person and not expect there to be something back. And also the pile-on. You can't, it was never a fair fight. It should never have been a fight. You were all the way wrong by parking your boat there.
Right.
These people stayed waiting to dock for what, 40 minutes?
Yeah. And they
then
called
you
out,
want to be the aggressor in this situation. You can't be the villain and the victim at the same time. So sorry for you.
Jeff, you totally agree with that.
I totally agree. You cannot be, right? And people in today's age play that card all the time. I don't like it. They're all the way wrong. They asked them to move for like 40 minutes, and they were just looking for trouble. They were looking for it. So whatever charges they're facing, I understand people want more. They deserve all of them, and probably then some.
Yeah.
Because you need to make an example of things like this, right? If it is racially charged, so is our country. Make an example of it. Even if that wasn't their intention in the beginning, they're drunk, whatever excuses you want on that side, you got to make an example of somebody. We can't have this racial tension. Then when all of a sudden everybody starts getting in, it becomes like a mob mentality, and then everybody's fighting. Whose side am I on? I don't even know who's fighting anymore. Let's just make it a black and white thing. And we need to get away from that in this country. So I say make bigger examples of people.
I appreciate that. Al, I wanted to get to you as a comedian and as a black man. The jokes that are being...
Both can be true.
Both can be true. But I mean, I didn't mean it like that. I meant, you know what I mean? There's a conflation here.
Dual threat running back.
Yeah. You can do both. I'm saying a lot of people on the internet have started making jokes about this, meaning there's been memes, there's been remixes. How do you feel about taking something so tense and infusing humor?
Well, I mean, it's kind of all comedy is.
That's a great
taking
point.
Something that's bad and making it funny. That's all humor. Richard Pryor famously came from a chaotic, dysfunctional background. Like, for some reason, trauma creates art. So I do understand that part of it. But I also think about what I've said in past situations, and in terms, it made me think about the Coupon Carl and
Permit
Patty and Barbecue Becky. And I said at that time, years ago, pre-pandemic, I worried about that because I did not want this to take away from what they were doing. Because when everybody was so interested in, like, oh, I'm going to name her water bottle, whatever, it takes away from the fact that this woman called the police on a 10-year-old black girl that was selling water for $1 on, like, the hottest day in Philadelphia or something like that. There's two things to unpack here. One, human beings deal with trauma in a lot of different ways. I happen. You do as well.
Yeah, I do.
Probably our best jokes are at funerals.
For
you know,
sure.
And other people.
I kill at funerals.
Punch walls. We all get out of, we deal with trauma in different ways. So we have to take that and compartmentalize that, and then also understand that making too many jokes will kind of lessen the situation and lessen the severity of what you guys said, which is like they were being jerks. There is a racial undercurrent that is right there underneath the surface. This was not that long ago. We are a young country. A lot of people probably know people that are still alive that were in and around that area during the times of its most turmoil.
I think whoever came off that boat was getting into a confrontation with them, right? But the fact that it's in Montgomery, Alabama makes the story totally different.
And that dock in particular.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about, and I just wanted to ask quickly, the police coming out and saying it's no hate crime right away, without taking a little second to say we're going to look into this? Was there any reaction to that? I thought at least they'd say it's pending investigation into that. Am I trying to create something here?
No, I think that a lot of people probably feel like it deserved a pending investigation.
Right.
I do remember, I can't remember the exact circumstance, there's been so many, but everyone thought this will definitely be classified as a hate crime, and there was something in the law that actually made it less egregious to classify. I can't remember exactly what the story was, but
I know it was
covered
like a couple months ago.
Yeah,
yes.
And there was something about the penalty in terms of like the punitive nature in that state made it less punitive to classify it. So I don't know what the laws are in Montgomery,
right?
But I think that it probably in such a heightened time might have kind of quieted some of the,
I also think that they're hard to prove. Unless we're talking about a synagogue where somebody walks in with a shotgun, it's a lot more difficult to prove, and prosecutors are going to go after what they think they can win.
Yeah, I would have said put the charges on them because that's the story that would have been out there. Maybe they were dropped later on, but put that out there just as an example right now. Like, you're going to get everything thrown at you because you deserve to, right? And then later on, we're never going to cover if those charges were dropped or upheld. The country will think, oh, well, at least somebody's doing something, especially in that area.
Yeah, I agree. And just a little context, a dock worker about a couple weeks or months ago was also jumped by these white pontoon workers. He was white at the time, but these guys are trouble. They're just alcohol.
That's what I mean. I don't know if you could prove that it was racial, but it seems like it, and they were looking for trouble.
That's right. It was earlier that day. Please excuse me.
Oh, well,
okay. So, yeah, they were feeling no pain, as Al says. Coming up on DBL, the Hollywood strike starts to weigh on some big stars. We're going to talk about Billy Porter having to sell his home, plus a former page who worked for NBC in the 70s. She's sharing never-before-told stories about several stars from Jimmy Stewart to Andy Kaufman. Stewart and from Jeremy Stewart. Michael D. Williams wrote terribly disturbing and also wrote it was indeed hateful. I agree with Al, says Daniel Page, and I also agree with Daniel and Al. Proving a hate crime is incredibly hard because what you have to prove is intent. Is this even on my face? Feels really low. Is it?
It's on you.
Okay, it feels really low. I also look like a Crayola box today. Feeling pretty skinny and
all the colors.
aerodynamic. Yeah, Benetton ad. But proving intent, just so you know, is like incredibly hard because it's what someone is thinking. And unless you do it so being like, I'm a Nazi, these are Jews, I'm gonna kill you, then it's very difficult to prove harmful intent, especially when they beat up a white guy hours earlier, which is never great. Never great to beat up anybody.
I don't think it was racially like.
You don't think
so? I
so?
don't think it was like, oh, we're gonna do this to get these black guys.
You think it was just drunk?
Yeah, they were drunk and stupid.
They're calling it Aquaman.
Once they got there, it became like maybe
didn't
a little bit more.
You're right. It grew into it, didn't it?
I think don't you have to have intention? Like
yeah, it's hard to prove.
Yeah,
and that's very, very hard to prove. You can't jump to the highest charge. You can't downgrade the charge if you can't prove it, and they can't get away with it. Rolling Trouble said, good job, Bob Iger, making Bill sell his home. Rolling Trouble, you're rolling trouble right into me. We gonna have a fight about this. Yeah, Billy Porter, we're gonna get into this, but remember, an unnamed exec said.
But that comment, You should bring that up on air.
I think I'm going to. Rolling trouble, are you okay if I bring it up on air? Because are you just creating rolling trouble?
But I think that a lot of people feel
Unlike-
like that.
Unlike Congressman Lewis, who said start good trouble. And that's it.
Great job.
Welcome back to DBL. Actors have been on strike for nearly a month now, and already some are really struggling to make ends meet. Believe it or not, and I was shocked, Billy Porter recently revealed he's having to sell his home to save money. He went on to say, until you make, quote, bleep you money, you're still living paycheck to paycheck. Other everyday actors are reportedly turning to other means to pay the bills, like dog walking, house cleaning, babysitting. Meantime, this has been the summer of strikes, with many labor unions vowing to join the picket lines unless their demands are met. I don't know if you heard, but UPS workers narrowly avoided going on strike after management agreed to the workers' demands, which now means drivers are making at least $170,000 a year. Applications are now pouring in.
I thought people didn't want to work.
Good point. Maybe they want a living wage. Oh! Sorry. My neck hurts. DBL Nation, we want to hear from you. Do you support unions? Yes or no? Go to dblvote.com to weigh in. I was born in like a union room, picket lines I grew up in. So I strongly believe that unions are the backbone. My mom and dad took me to protest. They taught me about unions and how to become a union member. SAG was important to me, even though I never got enough money.
You said it like you grew up with the Teamsters or something.
No,
Okay.
I just mean unions were taught to me as the backbone of the middle class and should be held as fragile and as important as like a Fabergé egg. So I don't know anyone growing up because of my bubble who were against unions. So this is so interesting. What did you guys think?
My family was very much a union family, especially education.
Teachers.
And,
Yeah.
Strongest union in the country, I believe.
Exactly.
Yeah, teachers.
So it was always a sense of protection. Now, my union experience has been very limited because as I went into media, my first radio job was a union radio job. So that meant they had to pay me a certain amount of money. And when I lost that job, they had to pay me X amount of months
There's
per
your
year
protection.
that I worked there, which 100% saved me. I was so young and naive at the time. When I moved to Colorado and I no longer was protected under that union, when I lost my job, I expected to get money after I lost my job, and they were basically like, too bad, so sad, here's your last check. So that's when I really understood the importance of being in a union, but there's all these other criteria for how you're protected.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I still don't really understand the union structure, and I've been in the SAG union for a long time.
Yeah.
So let me break it down for you how it works. Like when you move to LA, part of your street cred as an actor is like, are you in the union, right? So you have to do enough work to get in the union. So I'm like, well, I don't want to pay dues. You have to pay to get in a union, okay? So they're collecting money from you. That's the downside. If you make X amount of money, I think it was $40,000 when I lived there, you get benefits. You get health benefits,
right.
which is huge, right? So I did a couple jobs, and the union said to me, you are not working any more jobs until you get in the union. So I had to buy my way into the union, which I didn't have money for in the first place. Then I had to pay them a monthly wage, which I couldn't afford. I was making $25,000, $30,000 a year as a struggling actor, not protected in any way.
Right,
other
and still
than
paying them.
I was protected in a way like if they didn't pay on time, they get a fee and I get a little bit more money. But I didn't have any health insurance, anything like that. So I was paying a wage I couldn't afford to be in this union that didn't really protect me.
Right.
Also, when I started making enough money where they did protect me and I was on like big sets and things, we're like, let's get this thing rolling. You know what I mean? Somebody plug in that light.
Don't
and they're
do
like,
it.
you can't plug in that light. We have to wait till a union member gets here to plug in that light. Like, that's how ridiculous things are in Hollywood. You can't plug in a light on set to start filming. You have to wait for their union, whoever does the lighting and things like that, to come there and actually just go like this and be like, all right, time to go. So in that sense, the unions are a little ridiculous, but I get the positives.
And there's been corruption within unions for sure.
Yes.
Like, let's be honest
There's
here.
a lot of power there. And when you start talking about power, it's almost like the union is, and obviously without the crime and the violence, it's like the mafia. They're there to protect you, but it's like that famous line, I'll just say the end, pay me. Whatever you need, if you're going to get that protection, you're going to have to pay. Sometimes that means you don't get health insurance. Sometimes that means you can't plug in that light. But ultimately, there's a reason that companies hire union busters, because unions are the way that they bring the voices of a bunch of out-of-work actors to make them relevant, to make people listen.
And last point, shout out to UPS. Boom.
Yeah, I agree with you. Bravo. Do you support unions? 57% of you say yes. 43% of you say no. Interesting. Good temperature check. Coming up on DBL, our interview with former NBC Page, who's telling us what it was like working on some of the biggest shows in the 70s. Oh yeah, stick around.
If you have a trip booked and you've seen this news, you may be thinking, do you need a travel visa to get to Europe now? We turn to these sources and verified no. The new requirements are not technically a visa, but that's how you'll hear a lot of people refer to it informally. Along with an updated passport, you'll need an ETIAS authorization to travel to Europe. So what is it? When do you need one? How much does it cost? And how do you get one?
The European countries are very, very busy with travelers, especially from the U.S., and they want that safety and security.
That's why they're implementing the ETIAS, the European Travel Information and Authorization System, an additional layer of border security. To be clear, you don't actually need one of these yet, but the EU announced U.S. passport holders traveling to any of these countries for any business or personal reasons will. They'll be good for 90 days and allow for travel between any of the countries in this area beginning in 2024.
We recommend you put your application in at least 30 days in advance, because it should spit it out for you in about a few minutes, 10 minutes tops, but it could take a little bit longer. So
travel agent Shay Harrington says it will require entering your ID and travel info. Then the ETIAS will be digitally connected to your passport. It will cost €7 or about $8. This part is important. Once applications are open, they will only be available via the official website and accompanying app. Don't fall for any third-party sites offering to get you through the process.
These applications are processed very quickly. Normally, you risk that by doing and using any other form of this application.
So again, you don't have to worry about these quite yet, but if you know you have travel plans anytime in the next year to any other country, the backlog of passports is still a real problem. So if you know you need a new one, that's something you can begin to tackle now. With your Verify, I'm Abby Larico.
Welcome back. Shelley Herman has seen it all, including some of the biggest stars of the 70s, and now she's spilling all the tea in her new book, My Peacock Tale: Secrets of an NBC Page. Earlier, we spoke with her. Take a look.
Please welcome to the show, Shelley Herman.
Yes! Nice to meet you. All right, now a page is one of the most wanted roles in the entertainment industry, especially at NBC. Most people, though, have never even heard of that job. Tell us, what does a studio page do?
Well, specifically with NBC, it's an executive training program. So it's really like the best entry-level job somebody can get. And usually you have to at least have your Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science degree before you can apply online. They get about 16,000 applications a year. They say the odds of getting into Harvard are better than becoming a page. And once you get the job in New York, what they do is they usher the TV shows and they give tours of 30 Rock. Here in Los Angeles, the tour operation doesn't exist anymore, but the people who are in the page program still get the chance to hang around executives, work for different entities that NBC Universal owns, like Bravo, USA. They can work in the press department, but you've got 18 months to learn everything you can, make all the contacts you need, and hopefully get a leg up and get a good job in the industry.
Wow, love it.
I like it. All right, so in your book, there's a story about how you almost killed Jimmy Stewart by taking a picture with him. How did that happen?
Well, it's very rare for the pages to even have pictures with celebrities because we're supposed to be professional. We're the ambassadors from NBC to intermix with the talent or the production companies. But Jimmy Stewart was doing The Tonight Show one evening, and his limousine driver asked if I would take a picture with him and Mr. Stewart. And I did. And then Jimmy Stewart says, "Oh, why don't you have the little lady come over here and I'll take a picture with her?" So that's how I even got the picture. But a couple hours later, I got rushed to the emergency room because as a 21-year-old who was going to college, because they still let you be in college while you were working at the time, I was working another part-time job. I was dating somebody. It was Christmas. It was crazy. I wound up in the emergency room with hepatitis. And my first thought was, get to Jimmy Stewart, get him tested. I don't want to be the one who kills Jimmy Stewart.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I'm glad he's okay.
Yeah.
He's okay. You worked with Andy Kaufman at the very beginning of that strange wrestling stint we all remember in his career. What was it like working with Andy behind the scenes with such a mysterious guy? What was he like?
Andy was 10 of the nicest people you ever met put together, all rolled into one. He was kind, he was creative, and he was somebody who was honest, which is kind of funny to say because he deceived so many people.
Right.
But his art was pure, and he recruited me to do something with him one evening where I went up on stage and he pretended like he was going to barber school, so he had something to fall back on if this entertainment industry thing didn't work out for him. And mind you, he was already a little bit famous at this point. And he was cutting a wig, and I was getting upset because it was a bad hairdo, and somebody in the audience said, "Hey, stop that," and he kind of scuffled with that guy, and then I ran off stage. Well, when the whole thing was over, we're standing outside in front of the Improv, and Andy's laughing, and the other guy, they're high-fiving each other. And I said, "What was that?" He goes, "We got a reaction. We got a feeling. This is something. This is it." It was the precursor to the wrestling that he was doing. And his art was to get feelings out of people. And then just a little PS to that, Andy once told me that he was going to work on a sitcom, and it wasn't very good, so don't waste my time watching it. And that was Taxi.
Wow.
And I married one of the cast members from Taxi who was on the first season, the actor Randall Carver, who played John Burns.
Wow.
Well, we have less than a minute, so I just want to ask you really quickly, tell us in 30 seconds, what were the limo runs that was an assignment? Everybody wanted the limo runs with the celebrities.
Oh, well, the limo runs were great. We'd pick the celebrities up at the airport, bring them to events. In one case, one of the celebrities kidnapped Gilda Radner at her request, took her all around Hollywood, and his car ran out of gas, and Gilda Radner, along with other pages, are pushing her car down Beverly Boulevard. So we shouldn't kidnap the talent.
No,
bad idea.
You live and you learn.
I bet Gilda
Unless
loved
it's Tori.
How fascinating. DBL Nation, be sure to check out the book, My Peacock Tale, Secrets of an NBC Page, out now at mypeacocktail.com. Thank you so much, Shelley. We appreciate
Shelley.
you. We'll be right back.
When you get a stomachache, you may reach for a bottle of ginger ale to help you feel better. It's a common home remedy for nausea and other gastrointestinal issues. However, some people online are wondering if their go-to cure actually works. So let's verify. Does ginger ale really help with stomach aches, as many mamas, grandmamas, aunties, and cousins claim? Our sources are a study published in Nutrients in 2020, Emma Slattery, a registered dietitian at Johns Hopkins Medicine, Dr. Matthew Goldman with the Cleveland Clinic, and 4 ginger ale brands. This claim needs context. Here's why. A 2020 scientific review published in Nutrients analyzed more than 100 studies on the effects of consuming ginger. It shows that ginger root can help relieve nausea. Registered dietitian Emma Slattery says eating ginger can also help you cut down on bloating and constipation because it improves the rate at which food exits the stomach and continues along the digestive process. But while ginger may be in the name of the fizzy drinks you find in stores, many brands of ginger ale don't actually contain any real ginger. Verify looked at the ingredients lists of 4 popular ginger ale brands. Seagram says it contains ginger extract with other natural flavors, while Schweppes, Canada Dry, and Great Value ginger ale do not list ginger at all. Instead, only say natural flavors. So while ginger itself might actually help relieve a stomachache, the common ginger ales that you can buy at a supermarket don't contain enough of the ingredient to actually make a difference. Plus, ginger ale, like most other soft drinks, often contains large amounts of sugar, which may create further issues for you and your stomach ache. Dr. Matthew Goldman with the Cleveland Clinic says even diet ginger ale can be harmful because our bodies may not digest artificial sugars as well. So, how can you use ginger when you're feeling sick? The Cleveland Clinic recommends mixing ginger root with decaf tea or warm water. With your Verify, I'm Ariane Till. Many people keep bottles of water somewhere they might come in handy during an emergency, like stockpiled in a garage or a pantry. Or maybe you're like me and just leave water bottles everywhere. Can you drink those bottles days or even months later? Let's verify. Does bottled water that's properly stored expire? These are our sources. Bottled water that's unopened and stored properly doesn't have a shelf life, according to the Minnesota Department of Health and a letter from the New Jersey Department of Health. Foodsafety.gov says commercially bottled water can be stored indefinitely, though the taste may be impacted by improper storage conditions. So, what is proper storage? The International Bottled Water Association recommends storing water at room temperature or cooler, out of direct sunlight, and away from solvents and chemicals, such as gasoline, paint thinners, household cleaners, and dry cleaning chemicals. So we can verify, no. Unopened bottled water that's been properly stored does not expire. So then why do some bottles of water have expiration dates? The FDA doesn't require bottled water to have expiration dates, but the New York State Department of Health says many manufacturers opt to give their bottles 2-year expiration dates for taste reasons, not for safety. And what about those half-empty bottles of water laying around your house? Buxton, a British bottled water company, says once a bottle is open, you should finish it within 3 days to avoid any potential bacterial growth in the bottle. With your Verify, I'm Ariane Till.
Before we go, we've got a harrowing story of a woman's incredibly bad luck, or good luck if you think about it. Peggy was mowing her lawn in Texas when a snake, no joke, fell from the sky. Here's what Peggy said then happened next.
He wrapped himself around me as I was slinging my arm and wouldn't come off. And as this is going on, there's a hawk coming down, trying to get him. And as I'm trying to sling the snake off, the snake is striking me in my eyes. He's striking my face, striking my face. At about the 4th time, the hawk got the snake and carried it away, and I looked down and I was covered in blood.
So I guess the hawk tore her arm apart terribly. She's okay, but it's like a biblical story. Of a snake from the sky with the hawk.
It's very First Testament.
It is, and
very
the
Old Testament.
Parted.
Yes, I mean it's scary, and it's almost one of those things that you believe it because no one would ever make that up. It's like, oh, and then a hawk came. Like the fact that she's here, God bless her.
God bless her. Bye, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.